may be a bit of a roundabout as it appears. But looks like we're about to get started here. Kyong's going to immediately head towards the first heart available actually in the game, which is Link's house. Looking to pick up a little bit of extra safety on the way through. Can't blame him. Early game's pretty challenging.
So both runners are going to make a start that makes the seed look very typical, actually going straight up to the uncle. And Kyong is going to give us a tree pull for some bombs, very useful for many of the early game checks.
Yeah, we definitely see them going for the single bomb drops and also a fire rod here. Also of note, the prize pack for tier 3 in this seed would be an 8 stack of bombs, or at least 4 of those. So if they're feeling like they're running short, that's definitely an option for them if they want to get a lot of bombs quickly. Unfortunately, you do have to pull the tree at least once to do so, and it's probably more efficient for now to just simply go for tier 1s.
Yeah, so Kyong is going to farm an extra round of bombs, bringing him up to 8. While Wulfy is going to opt to grab the bombs in the sanctuary, actually, to bring his up to a 7. And we're going to get some immediate route divergence. We have Wulfy heading to Kakariko, while Kyong is heading towards South Shore.
Yeah, and I'm going to presume that he's heading to the well itself. I don't think he's going east until at least he finishes this section, seemingly skipping the desert area altogether for now. But here in the well, there is something of interest. I think Wulfy's going to come out with more total items, though, out of this trip.
Although it is important to consider routing efficiency. For example, you don't want to have to revisit Kakariko if you can get away with not coming back. And so Wulfy picks up the magic mirror in Blind's hideout, while Kyong goes and gets the silver arrows.
Well, I suppose Wulfy will have to reflect on whether or not that mirror choice this early on was important to him. He does pick up that armor, which I think is really going to be critical, seeing as I think both of these runners are going to be going as low percent as they possibly can when it comes to hearts. Although Wulfy has missed that piece of heart in the spoiler log, and maybe picking that up on purpose or accidentally stopping for it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was on purpose. It really doesn't lose any time to open that chest, actually, since the bomb timer ticks down while you're doing so.
Very good point.
But that was a very nice little safety room there to pick up 2 heart containers, as well as the ever-important bug.
Yeah, Bugnet, a very underrated safety. It's very likely that our runners will be picking up at least 1 bottle at some point. There's likely to be one on their way. And there's plenty of opportunities to pick up a fairy, and we've seen a couple of these spoiler log races come down to whether or not someone was able to survive an extra hit or 2 from Ganon. And, when hugs do 8 damage to Green Link, that's pretty relevant.
So Wulfy is now going to head down to the South Shore as well, while Kyong is going to opt for Back of Escape and pick up Half Magic and the Flute.
So it looks like this is a bit of a routing edge that Kyong has over Wulfy right now, being able to activate that flute on the first trip to Kakariko. Perhaps an oversight for Wulfy, but it's not a gigantic time loss. I guess it depends on how Wulfy wants to complete the castle.
That's true, yeah. It is. It's only the time loss of walking over to Kakariko again, which is really about 30 seconds, which is it's fairly significant in the spoiler race, honestly. Any time counts when it's almost entirely execution based, and so you really do not want to lose time to small routing errors such as that.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't sneeze at that in a regular race, but in these circumstances. Both of our runners have picked up a fair amount of cash as well. They don't particularly seem to need any money right away, but 50-ish rupees for the 2 of them. They may be thinking in the back of their minds that if they find an opportunity to pick up an extra 300, whether that be for safety or maybe even to see what old Zora has for us today, that may be in the back of their minds.
And Kyung is going to opt to pick up the shovel from Blind's hut, which Wulfy did not do. So we can probably infer that the dig spot is really not useful. It's just helpful to have the shovel, actually, because it can dig up arrows, it can dig up bombs, which was a change added to Randomizer so that the shovel has some additional utility.
I feel like the one thing we're missing that we're probably never going to see is for shovel dashing to work on every tile to dig up instead of just the last one. That would make quality of life so much better with the shovel.
I'm pretty sure that's also not actually possible
Yeah, it's completely
without like additional code modification. It's you don't really dig the hole.
Yeah, that would take some really hefty ASM hacking, which I'm certainly not an expert on. Well, it took only 5.5 minutes for us to save the bird. Certainly record time here in Hyrule. I think that Zelda would be a little envious of us here.
Yeah, and you can see that though Kyong and Wulfy have cleared almost exactly the same things, Kyong is just a little bit ahead of Wulfy thanks to the slight routing optimization, going to Mini Moldom Cave first.
And then we have our first trip up the mountain. Both of our runners do, of course, have their glove, and as you mentioned, they're pretty much identical in inventory. A couple of edges that Wulfy would have over Kyong. He does have arrows that Kyong does not have, but Kyong also has more money to work with. It appears Wulfy did just buy some bombs. An investment of both time and money.
And we are going to see yet more routing divergence. Wulfy is heading over to the east side of Hyrule to go to what appears to be Sahasrara's hut.
So we just saw a bunny sprite and a mushroom sprite of, well, a bunny sprite of a mushroom. A little disorienting if you're just tuning in. This is not an inverted mode seed. This is just open mode, just the sprite selections. But we do have a moon pearl for Wulfy, something that Kyong's definitely going to be looking for. I think probably after this, actually.
Yeah, so Kyong just went up to Hera, seemingly only to pick up the Titan's mitts that are there, and Wulfy is also going to go to the mountain now. So it's mostly just a choice of which one do you want to do first, since you will be going to both of them and then leaving right away after.
And folks, if this is your first spoiler race that you've ever seen, our runners can actually watch the restream and each other and chat if they wish. I don't recommend it personally if you're racing because that's really distracting to try and manage to do those things all at the same time. But we're also a little bit hesitant to say too much about what they should or shouldn't be doing, just to avoid necessarily giving a tip to one or the other. But they, of course, do have the full spoiler log. They can access all of this as they go, which is kind of the common strategy. One thing that you might find really impressive, that I certainly find impressive, is that they're able to route so much in 15 minutes.
Also, thank you, Kyong, for skipping the worst boomerang.
I'm here for that opinion. I'm absolutely here for that. Well, looks like we're going to get our first Dark World access. Of course, we were on the mountain, but first time in Thieves Town. Or, excuse me, the Village of Outcasts. Kyong may be heading to Thieves Town since that is actually open.
Although it should be worth noting that we currently do not have a weapon with which to kill Blind. And it is a crystal, so we are going to need to kill Blind at some point.
Yo, but at least we're well armored for it, right?
Yeah, that red mail in the chest game, very, very nice safety.
I'm almost kind of surprised to see if it weren't that close and accessible. I don't think either of them would pick it up.
Oh no, no way. Red mail is just kind of a safety thing. It's nice to have, and boots are also definitely nice to have.
It's definitely interesting to see that they're both heading towards the exact same places in this sequence. Wulfy, of course, will want those boots immediately. There would be a significant time advantage for someone to miss that. To not be getting that until, say, like after a dungeon or something. We do also pick up a bow, which gives us access to our silvers, so we have a pretty powerful weapon. Unfortunately, cannot do anything to Blind, as you mentioned before, Espeon.
Yeah, and I mean, well, that was a pretty loaded Village of Outcasts right there. You got some armor, you got your Pegasus boots, and the bow. How often do you see something like that?
You know, I would say they're on fire, but they already found that fire rod earlier. However, it is hammer time. Kyong has found from Stumpy, apparently a carpenter out here in the Dark World. We don't find him in his craft here in the Light World in the Grove, but we will probably make use of that hammer immediately. Or I
Yep.
stand corrected.
Well, Kyong is opting to go straight to, looks like Eastern. Gonna make use of that bow. While
Now, of course,
hmm.
it was interesting
Wulfy
that he
is
didn't
going
go to
into
Palace of
the-
Darkness, but he can.
Well, Palace of Darkness is a pendant.
So for those of you at home may be able to infer that we probably do not have a required item in there.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had you have bow, hammer, mirror, you can just go straight to pod.
Yeah, almost kind of a shame that wasn't a good opportunity for us. Kyong probably worried or not worried, probably regretting that he doesn't have a hook shot to make this nice and fast, but you can't get everything optimal, right? We also see another divergence. I'm sorry, Wolfie's just heading to pick up that hammer. I thought he hadn't. He'd already picked that up. So we'll see where Wolfie goes from there, but would not be surprised to see him follow suit.
Yeah, but Wulfy went into Thieves Town actually and didn't really get anything of value in there, so I'm wondering if that was a mistake on his part.
You know, given the 15-minute window that they have to prepare for these races, I wouldn't be surprised at all if a lot of runners pretty much make their decisions about dungeons as soon as they get there. They'll look for the biggest things that matter and then, check their notes as they get there. That's certainly how I would do it, given the limited time window. And we know that everybody who qualified for this is an absolute monster. And if you're racing against Kyong, I certainly think you're trying to do everything you can to save every second you have. Interestingly enough, one of the Ganon texts, or one of the texts that gets replaced in Randomizer for specifically this version of the site, the spoiler log website, includes a reference to Kyong, actually, saying that he would have sub 50 the seed. I'm wondering if we're going to see that in today's race. The sub 50 or that reference.
It would certainly be amusing if he did sub 50 and then got that text.
Well, I'll wait with a bated breath on that one. That one's pretty funny to me. He is absolutely annihilating Eastern Palace, though, with his silvers. Really not stopping for anything.
And picking up a sword in the big chest. Very nice to have, of course. You will need 2 swords from somewhere in the game to finish, as Ganon cannot be defeated by just the fighter sword. However, because we do know where all of the swords are, we can pick up extra swords as we see fit for safety.
Yeah, the Eastern Palace one's probably the most convenient and on the in our path one. The other's potentially more frustrating to get. I think the second one they're probably going to get quickly, but 3 or 4 is kind of a choice. You have to invest a lot of time in those. I'm curious to see which route our runners will go if they go for either of those. Nice free quick warp for Kyong there, recognizing where you can actually step on that tile to save half a second.
Second easiest quick warp in the game. Actually, maybe third. I think third.
Definitely glad to see small bits of knowledge being used, though. That's free time save if you ever want to learn about quick warps. You can find out more information about that on the ALTTP Discord. They have a lot of resources for stuff like that, especially the wiki. And those can benefit you in any run, whether you're doing a spoiler log tournament or a NMG race.
Yeah, if you're wondering what a quick warp is, it's a minor optimization, saves 32 frames every time you do it. You get a very slightly faster mirror animation. Smith's quick warp is slower because it's there you can if you don't do the quick warp and you mirror at the start of the screen, it's a little bit faster.
I think I may have started the wrong discussion in this chat. No, it's good though. The more people talk about quick warps, the more everybody saves free time. Well, here comes the rest of Thieves Town. Reg and Chad actually mentioning to us that Wulfy had stopped to pick up keys when he was in there earlier, so that appears to be the reason why. Kyong nearly getting a God Pixel Dash. Unfortunately, RNG not that friendly.
So these runners have pretty much been following the exact same path, with Kyong a bit ahead of Wulfy for pretty much everything so far. Definitely not an insurmountable obstacle, though.
Yeah, Wulfy does have the benefit of having a little less to do in this pass through, but he is definitely that entire lengthy hallway behind him. Kyong will be in the basement by the time he even hits the hallway. Moving on through, though, blind and interesting challenge. They don't have a lot of health to work with. Thankfully, armor, but armor doesn't do a whole lot for us. They do have a couple of things they can use. They can use the hammer or the fighter sword in this scenario, if they so wished. I believe the smart thing to do would be to use the sword, but some people out there are brave. And for those of you tuning in a little bit late to the race, there was a couple of small divergences. Wulfy had made an extra trip to Kakariko early on, although Kyong does have exceptional execution. I would not be surprised to see that some of this edge would be from that. And thus is our Quake medallion. So we have all of the medallions that we need, just a single one. We would need Bombos if we needed to do Ice Palace without that Fire Rod, but we do have that Fire Rod, so we're good there. Alright, so I missed the blind pun, unfortunately, but Kyong is definitely not missing any of his attacks here. This is, of course, a scripted fight. If you've never seen blind before, you're new to A Link to the Past or Randomizer. And this is kind of a standard for pretty much anybody who practices this game. Kyong doing an interesting rightward slash to get that last hit, which I did not think would hit, and is rewarded with a better sword.
Yep, so the gist of the blind script is that if you hit blind on the first possible frame, he'll do the same thing every time. So as long as you do your part, blind will do his, and you will always win without taking damage. Usually.
Okay, I think I see the confusion in chat. You're not playing the ROM to see the locations. They get a text file that, like in Notepad, you pretty much open it up, or your text editor of choice, to see all the locations in the game. Some of them have some naming conventions that aren't necessarily obvious, so you got to know how to parse the document yourself. We don't allow special tools to parse it either. And within that 15-minute study period before they start, they can figure out where anything they need is. So the fact that you're seeing them do pretty similar stuff has to do mostly with them having been pretty good at studying.
Yeah, so blind's pun is actually, are you doing a blind run of this game? Which is ironic, because this is definitely not blind. We have all the information. Such as the information that the Ice Rod, one of the most hated items in the game, is on the Graveyard Ledge, one of the most hated locations in the game.
You know, it's a good thing, though, that we can find out ahead of time, and certainly need that Ice Rod. We are going to be going to Turtle Rock at some point. Not only a crystal, but I think we may have other reasons to be there, too. Did you happen to catch what was in the King's Tomb there?
Yeah, it was just a heart container.
Okay, it was an interesting diversion. Kyong now, of course, does have the ability to see where his opponent is as well, so we may see our racers make decisions based on their opponent in real time, which is not something you'd normally see in a randomizer race.
Here's an interesting choice, though. Pendant Mire without Cane. What do you think of that?
Smells fishy. Something is amiss.
We have the spoil log, so I'm sure that Kyong has a very good reason for going into here. Oh, that was a really good Mire too. I'm jealous.
Good lord.
It was very clean execution, and he got good Popo RNG.
If I had Mire 2 like that, I wouldn't get Ether after Swamp. Well, can you believe it? He's got it. Samaria in hand, Kyong's out of there.
Yeah, and that's all we'll need to be in Mire for, just to grab that King of Samaria for Turtle Rock.
Now, of course, that wasn't the only thing that we could have possibly picked up from Meyer that would have been useful. Although these runners are, exceptional by now at doing certain challenging. I don't know. Should we just unseal the lid on that one?
On which thing?
The one thing that they skipped in Meyer.
Oh yeah, sure, why not? Well, actually, don't yet, because Wulfy might get it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Speaking of Wulfy, we are actually in Skull Wood, somewhere we have not seen Kyong go yet, and this is with half magic in tow. This is a pretty comfortable. It looks like Mothula fight, if you pardon the 6 hearts to work with. I mean, maybe comfy for him. I would honestly struggle with this configuration, but at least they got half magic.
And Hammer, which makes the fight much easier.
So a really nice setup for Wulfy there, getting the double hit, or it appeared that he got the double hit. He was lining up for it. Of
Yeah,
course,
he
the
got the
conveyors
double.
are a pain.
So that was a pretty clean Mothula fight by pretty much any standards. Master Sword Moth is not something to be trifled with.
And Kyong ascending the tower. We've already been here before. Will get his bumper skip. Had to make a slight pixel adjustment, and I'm glad he did, because that would have been a fall. And we have a Moldorm fight coming up here. He should be done with this very quickly.
Not getting trolled whatsoever. Going to easily take down Mothula. Sorry, Moldorm. They're both bugs. Is Moldorm a bug? Do we call him like a worm thing?
In A Link Between Worlds, he's a hamburger, so I'm not exactly sure where we would class him.
Let's just call him a new species. Just a troll. That's just what he is.
I mean, he is moldy. He is a worm. Yeah, that's tough. Defying expectations, we also see Kyong heading towards Turtle Rock, which he does have the Cane of Samaria. I guess he might be thinking about what else is in that dungeon, because that would be a hefty, difficult dungeon to do with this configuration, even with Red Mail.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Although I gotta say, having the full item configuration to basically finish all of Turtle Rock, with of course the exception of the lamp if you don't need it, no big deal. But under 25 minutes entering, kind of blows my mind.
Here's the thing. Turtle Rock is something you almost always leave for last. You do not go there before you have to, which indicates, of course, there is almost certainly a progression item in here, since we didn't see any in Hera.
And I believe we just saw Wulfy leave Misery Mire, right?
Yes, we did, so we can reveal what the other item in Misery Mire was, which was the lamp.
Yeah, so Dark Rooms are us for the rest of this race, and Kyong's probably going to be the first one to show us one. We have not actually seen a Dark Room yet, interestingly enough, because they had used the Fire Rod in Eastern Palace to light up that room.
That is true. Pyramid Fairy is also available. So after we clear Turtle Rock, we will be able to go there. That is pretty convenient that both of the red crystals are on Death Mountain.
I mean, that even matches pallets. Now, I'm curious to see whether or not they're going to actually stop there. There is value to be had with the Pyramid Fairy, and they certainly have routed to make it convenient, but that is a time investment. We've not defeated Aghanim, so there's no shortcut portal to bring that big bomb over. So anybody looking to actually cash that in will be spending time. Well, it looks like the Chain Chomps are with their own type of item. In fact, both of them with chains attached to them. Hookshot being found by Kyong92, of course, which is a fantastic item to have for the rest of the race. Not only do we, of course, need it for, say, Swamp Palace, but it also makes us faster in a lot of scenarios. Even makes sword climbing available, which, since we will be going up the mountain again, may actually be pretty handy.
Well, considering that we needed Hookshot here anyway, this trip would have been worth it just for the Hookshot. But who knows? Maybe there's more.
Yeah, definitely a dead giveaway that Kyong's going the distance that he didn't mirror out immediately. And as you mentioned, of course, there are still item locations in here, so we may not be done just yet. Wulfy, though, sensing the blood in the air, is going to go hunting immediately in Turtle Rock. We've got a very astute chat today. They seem to be on the ball as to what they think is in every location, really calling things out with fervor, and I don't blame you. There's certain paranoias that I've built up having watched a few seeds, certain specific locations that you just expect to be in Turtle Rock. So we'll see if that ends up being the case, or maybe we'll flip your expectations upside down.
The right answer is that everything is in Turtle Rock.
I have no ability to refute that. You're completely right. Yes, Wulfy taking the long ray.
Yeah, no Hookshot yet. Gonna have to go all the way around. And it looks like he was menuing to try and switch to the Hookshot like the standard NMG strats, but no Hookshot yet. He's got to wait a little bit longer to get that.
It's extremely difficult to unlearn those instincts. Like, you just used to menuing a certain way. One thing that I'll say that is really different about this game compared to a lot of others is that menuing tends to be very different from run to run when you play Randomizer, and that can be very disorienting for someone who just does speedruns of this game. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind as a watcher. They have to adjust on the fly to things they're not used to doing.
So here we go, Master Sword Trinix. Though we do have that hammer, so that'll make things a good bit easier.
Well, that was the tough menu change. He did switch to the Fire Rod before running out of time from that last hammer hit. There's a very small window to make that switch. Wisely choosing to burn down the last one with just a Fire Rod since we had Magic to spare. Looks like a pretty straightforward fight. As long as Kyong can stay on top of the last head, he should be in the clear. Wulfy's certainly not that far behind him. Already heading towards the big key chest, and will be on his way to the boss shortly.
Plus, we can also consider that Wulfy has already done Skull Woods while Kyong has not. So that is some time lead that he has, somewhat invisible lead that you wouldn't be able to see. But you can, we can subtract that time from Wulfy's deficit.
And yeah, given the current status of things, that's actually putting them pretty close to parity right now.
Yep, and we just picked up the flippers from Trinix because, of course, the last item is on Trinix. Where else would it be?
I
So
mean,
that's
that's where it is
flippers.
in
We are
base.
now... Yeah, we're in go mode now.
Wow, half-hour go mode.
So now, for Kyong, we have 3 dungeons remaining: Swamp Palace, Skull Woods, and Ice Palace. However, he is also still sitting on Master Sword, which is not really the best weapon to take on Ganon with. You really want that Tempered Sword. It speeds up the fight a whole lot, as well as in GT itself.
And of course, it's the most practiced Ganon fight as well. So, I mean, depending on your comfort level with, Master Sword and other weapons, I mean, I think both of these runners can do a Master Sword Ganon no problem. I know Kyong definitely can. I'm not as familiar with Wulfy, but I mean, they're in this tournament. They're able to do that. Um, the question is, how much time does it save to get the tempered? In some situations, it won't even save time, but I think given what we've seen so far and how close we are to being, pretty much done with all the items we're going to pick up, I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them pick it up. That is the beauty of us having the log and the audience not, is we get to let you guys keep guessing as to where those last 2 swords are.
Yeah, I think actually after Swamp Palace would be the best time to talk about it, or reveal the location. And Wulfy taking a death on Laser Bridge. Fortunately, he did take the safety door, so not too big of a deal, but that is more time loss.
Get some pretty smooth laser walk skips following the death, and actually only takes 1 hit. Should be in good position to take on Trinex here shortly. And I think it'd be reasonable to surmise that Kyong has nothing of value to worry about on the left side of Swamp, or at least isn't going there. To answer the question in chat from Dash Killer, this is actually a spoiler format, so all the runners are, in this tournament are actually looking at the spoiler log intentionally for like 15 minutes before the race starts, and they have this available to them throughout the entire race. So typically, when you see like an error in routing, that's reflective of not having like noticed something on the list, but it was available to them.
I would just like to point out that Kyong's execution throughout Swamp Palace has been quite good, wasting no time dashing about, getting all the necessary keys, and running to Argus, although now we are going to have a Master Sword Argus fight. Not the easiest thing. Oh, he's going for poke dashes. Oh my.
Poke dash is notoriously difficult. It's how you, if you have the tempered sword, it's how you would do the 0 cycle, and it's pretty much the only way to do it. What you saw Kyong do on the first, grab is he was trying to grab 2 puffs at once. Again, this is really difficult to do. You have to do, you have to do like a hook dash while you have your sword held out. So basically, you have 3 inputs held down, 2 of them frame perfect, or simultaneous. It's really difficult.
Yeah, especially with poke dashing with the Master Sword, it's actually far, far more difficult because you constantly have your sword out, touching puffs, and it takes 2 hits to kill a puff instead of just 1. And so you are trying to use the hookshot repeatedly to pull more puffs towards you, while you also can't let go of... you can't stop hookshotting for more than a couple of frames, otherwise your sword will be put away because it's been poking a puff for too long. So you actually have to have a very consistent rhythm of hookshots while moving back and forth. So I would say Master Sword Argus is the hardest fight in the game to do perfectly.
I would definitely agree to that. And we do get to see other examples of where poke dash strats are useful. Cold Stare is a really great fight to highlight for that. Although with Tempered usually is what we'll see, say for MG, you get the opportunity and the blessing to just do dashes to keep your poke going, to keep continuing to poke. No such luxury in Argus. But Kyong made it look pretty easy overall. I mean, despite taking a few cycles, that's not that much time spent. We'll see if Wulfy can have a better attempt at it. Not sure which method would be the best for him in this scenario. If he can get 2 puffs at a time, that's probably going to save him some time over Kyong.
So Kyong is going to head into Ice Palace, going to save Skullwoods for last. Which, not really a bad choice. I feel comfortable in saying that Ice Palace is full of junk. There is no sword in here.
It's an interesting choice. I'm not sure why specifically we would look to hold off to the very end for it. I mean, there's no time advantage or disadvantage to doing Ice or Skullwoods, first, given that we have the flute. Just kind of hard to decipher what was going through Kyong's mind. I'm definitely going to ask him about that after if he's going to interview.
Maybe it's just order of preference.
But the world must know. Absolutely demolishing everything so far in Ice Palace, and Wulfy's doing just about as well in Swamp Palace. Also getting his nice hook dash state to get the easy pot lift over there for that statue.
In reference to why not doing Hera last, because if you were going to do Tower of Hera last, it actually burns 2 mirror warps trying to go into the dungeon, because you're going there from the Dark World. And you need to, because you'd hookshot over the bridge. And so going there from Dark World is actually pretty slow. It's only worth it if you didn't have to pass by it at all previously.
We saw a bit of a rare missed executed penguin room from Kyong there. That's another opportunity for Wulfy to maybe close a little bit of this gap. Wulfy having a great Swamp Palace so far.
Yeah, so it looked like he was going for the double bomb strat, but possibly picked up one of the bombs by accident or something. Not really certain what happened. Oh, did he go for the spin stairs? I didn't even notice.
That I did not catch. Although that clip is pretty fancy. Takes some practice. It's not that hard to do, but, something that you have to be pretty comfortable in if you're going to do it during a race.
Also, if you mess it up, you take damage. So it's kind of annoying to mess up.
Well,
Alright, let's see this.
Lots of magic.
Oh my. That was a very fast Cold Stare fight. Perfect Fire Rod.
I mean, I want to say he got like 3 double hits out of that Fire Rod. He may have even got a triple. That's exceptional.
I think it was 4 triples. Actually, he just blew through the Fire Rod there. And just deleted Cold Stare. Like, wow.
So what I'm wondering is, did he mess with the spooky variable, the flute, before entering? Because it seemed like he didn't have any kind of displaced Fire Rod shots there.
Yeah, all you have to do in order to fix that actually is just flick the flute once. Just press the flute button to start the melody, and that actually resets the altitude variable.
Yep, so if you're looking to have a more consistent Cold Stare fight when you're using Fire Rod, definitely something to keep in mind for your own races.
Yeah, all you have to do is right before you pick up the rock, just hit the flute, and it will make the Fire Rod actually do its area of effect damage properly, instead of being a little bit broken.
And you put it perfectly, Espeon. We're just rewriting, or I guess resetting, the altitude variable, which messes with the displacement of the Fire Rod, and yada yada yada. But definitely a good thing to have be consistent for you. And for those of you who have been having woes trying to practice Cold Stare in the practice hack, that may be a solution if you're trying to get the Fire Rod to work better. Some of you out there may be trying Sword Beam strats, which is something I was hoping to see this tournament. We're probably not going to see it though.
Not in this race, at least. Might see it in possible future races with lower percent Cold Stares. Although we should now mention the sword situation, because it is very relevant now.
Absolutely. So, we were hinting and alluding at the Pyramid Fairy before. Neither of our runners have gone there. We have a vanilla sword upgrade up there.
Yeah, the optimal time to go pick up that sword upgrade would be right after Swamp Palace, but neither runner chose to go for it. Instead, both of them just heading to Ice Palace. So that means, in addition, we have the last sword at King Zora, that horrible, horrible fish. So we are going to see Master Sword Ganon's Tower and Master Sword Ganon today, because I assume they're not going to go out of their way to pick it up afterwards.
I mean, heck, at this point, they don't even have 100 rubies to spend on the bomb.
Well, Wulfy has 95, almost there.
I almost got corrected there, but he just missed him anyway. He's clearly telling us emphatically he is not going to go get that sword. Ooh, and a nice sword clip for, or a stair clip for Wulfy, getting one of the less optimal ones, but does save some time over trying to go through the staircase normally.
It's actually a little bit slower than optimal non-clip strats, but I think it's easier.
Oh, you're referring to the way you can use momentum to get directly above the... Okay.
Yeah, hammer, the hammer skating. Yeah, so swords are at Pyramid Fairy and Zora. Neither runner has gone to pick it up, and we will almost certainly not be seeing them pick it up later.
Can I just remark on how excellent it is that we have a strat in this community called hammer skating? Well, despite Wulfy having a better penguin room, unfortunately his cold stair fight is a bit slower, and the lag from the boss explosions will definitely impact that, so probably a net time loss on this dungeon compared to Kyong. So we are approaching Ganon's Tower. There's usually a game we like to play when we watch Link to the Past Randomizer, but we don't exactly have any doubt about where this big key is going to be. I haven't looked at it actually personally, but if you want to take a guess as to which location it is, feel free to write it out in chat, the full name of it, and no official bot or anything, but we'll assume that you weren't spoiled and you're just the genius. What about you, Espeon? Have you looked at it?
Yeah, I look at the big key location, since a lot of my co-coms prefer not to, so I like to just have the information.
I feel like we've had some Galaxy Brain plays both in-game and out-of-game. And there you have it, Kyong wasting no time at 43 minutes and 20 seconds heading up to the top of the tower. Given that in an NMG split with Tempered Sword, this would take him probably about 6 or 7 minutes, depending on execution. I don't think we're going to see the sub 50 today, although that would be incredible.
And even by itself, Ganon would already take longer with Master Sword, so doubtful. We might get a 51.
I'm definitely happy to see that they have the silvers, though. That's a lot less spins.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Without silvers, it's going to be 52 total spins, specifically 24 in the last phase. Yeah, sure. Somalia, Master Sword, Ganon. Definitely not extremely difficult.
Though, not everybody is comfortable using the Samaria strat, and that may actually represent a difference in this fight. To my knowledge, I believe both of these runners know how to do it.
Oh, that's really exciting. I would actually be very hyped for that.
And of course, if you're unfamiliar with what we're referring to, if you've never seen a Master Sword Ganon fight using the Cane of Samaria, you can actually place a Cane of Samaria block down and use that to get extra sword spins. Of course, sword spins being the only damage you can do if you have Master Sword, so that's a pretty essential advantage. Also, shoutouts to very weird, spooky Fire Rod displacements for Kyong there, being a total bro killing that last Zazax. I'm sure we can blame the duck somehow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because when Kyong fluted to Death Mountain, I don't think he reset the altitude before transitioning, so the Fire Rod would still be displaced.
That's the next level strat that's gonna, bring somebody the world's fastest time, is somebody just realizes that, oh, I can displace this Fire Rod and somehow it saves me 6 frames in this room. Although it is kind of normal for people to use the Fire Rod in Gauntlet 5 there to kill the Stalfos, so it's weird to see the Zazax killed with it. Kyong is already almost a Torches 2, just absolutely murdering this Ganon's Tower climb, and Wulfy not that far behind. Seeing some discussion in chat about whether or not we would have picked up Tempered if we didn't have Silvers. I'm inclined to agree with that. However, we would have seen much different routing overall, given that those Silvers were available very early. Would have given our runners a lot of opportunity to decide, okay, now I want to pick up that extra sword. Alright, so I'm going to hazard a guess and say that we're probably not going to see any Moldorm bounces today.
Oh, yeah, no. Do you have any idea how difficult that is? Oh, God.
Someday,
that is just
someday.
so... Okay, so the Moldorm bounce that we're talking about is a trick that actually lets you get across the gap without the hookshot or the boots. However, it is also extremely tight. It's frame perfect, pixel perfect, and actually, it's not pixel perfect. It's just frame perfect, but it's also frame wheel dependent.
RNG.
Which basically means that it's just RNG whether you get it or not. It's a 1 in 4 chance. Even if you get the frame perfect part, you still might not get it.
Let alone the fact that Moldorm's actual total, the amount that he turns in a, I guess you want to call it the radians or whatever, the amount that he turns and the distance that he moves is also random. So, I mean, even if you try to manipulate it, there's only one of every 4 animation cycles in his attack cycle that you can even manipulate.
Yeah, it requires Moldorm to actually cooperate with you, which never actually happens.
But the reason we bring this up, though, is because it was literally proven possible recently, and it's just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Kyong, though, recovering pretty well from a slightly shaky couple of phases for Aga 2, will be moving on to his Ganon fight. Wulfy's actually almost to Moldorm 2, so this is a pretty tight gap right now. It
Sub
would be
50
a
is...
miracle.
Yeah. If he goes for Samaria, which he will, and he gets it, then sub 50 is maybe possible, assuming that Ganon does not warp too much. You should blame Synac's spoiler bot. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that.
Way to get called out while you're in chat.
Oh, he missed a spin. Okay, yeah. He's gonna have to go through an extra Ganon cycle on this, but fortunately that is the faster of the two. So he's gonna go now for spins inside of the ring. He needs to get 12 spins off.
I mean, he's doing a fantastic job. This is not easy to do. Something to keep in mind as well is that you do get displaced a little bit when you do the sword spin, and that Samaria does help keep you in place, but you also have to make sure you're positioned correctly after each spin, because if you were to deviate even a little bit, you could lose the benefit of that Samaria block.
Okay, so that was a 3 and 2, which is really good.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Definitely better than I can do. I am not familiar with Samaria Ganon strats.
Wow, this really is close to sub 50.
Or if Ganon would just stop warping around. Yeah, so Wulfy is now coming in. out of Agatu going to Ganon. I'm wondering if he will also go for the Somalia strat.
Yeah, I mean, he's no slouch either. Currently doing a really good job. I mean, anybody who's going to get a sub 1 hour time, that takes some skill, execution, and of course, planning. An excellently placed last arrow for Kyong right as Wulfy drops into the fight. So Ganon apart, probably about 2 minutes or so, maybe 2.5 between the two of them. Get your GGs in chat for Kyong92, who is going to finish this race in first place with an official SRL time of minus the 15 minutes, 50:31.
Yeah, really close to sub 50.
Well, we've been spared the reference, the self-referential Ganon text. Just insert your dumb memes here. So, comment LOL.
You get to drink from the fire hose.
So, for those of you wondering about how the series is going, this was game 1 between the two of them, a best of 3 series. Kyong and Wulfy will be having their game 2 on Friday, April 19th, so next week, at the same time actually, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to hopefully get Kyong and Wulfy in here for an interview once Wulfy's done. In the meantime, cheer on Wulfy as he finishes up his Ganon fight.
Yeah, phase 2 is definitely, I would say, the hardest phase of Ganon to do with Master Sword, just because it's really hard to get double spins if he's not in a good position for it.
Well, getting an unfortunate fire bat, but still landing the hit, definitely the most important thing. These warps are brutal, and you don't want to have any extra opportunities for them. Of course, RNG is set between the two runners, but if there's a fall or a death, then they'd have to completely reset from that.
Yeah, and you can see on Kyong's side that King Zora had some sword for sale. Of course. Ooh, and Wulfy setting up for a triple here.
Ooh. That was crispy.
Very nice. Yeah. Even though it doesn't really matter at this point, he did save a good amount of time with that triple.
Yeah, I mean, he made a fan in my book for that one. Before we bring these two in for the interview, love to remind everybody, if you enjoyed the race that they put on today, and I think it was a fantastic race between the two of them, show them some love here on Twitch. Give them a follow. These folks are, constantly streaming this and other stuff, and these are some of the better racers out there. You can get a sub 1 hour time. I think you're pretty good at the game in my book. So we'll see if we can get these two in here for a quick interview. Otherwise, as you may have seen from Synac in the chat, we do also have another race coming up on Speed Gaming 6 here in this tournament. Well, it appears we have Kyong in the waiting room. I'm going to pull him in right now. And we are joined by the victor of Game 1 today, Kyong92. Kyong, how are you doing today? Uh-oh, that may have cut out.
Kyong, are you there?
Oh no, we have Discord activity, but no sound. You perhaps may need to switch your audio device. We'll give him a second to sort that out. We'll also look to see if Wulfy would like to share any words with us as well.
Should be working now.
There we are. Kyong, congratulations, GG, on your Game 1 victory. How are you feeling after this race? That was a fast one.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of nerve-wracking because of how swords were kind of lowish health throughout most of it as well.
Yeah, swords were just in awful, awful locations. Like, come on, Pyramid Fairy, King Zora. Like, really, this
Yeah,
is just not.
yeah, I was actually planning to get the Zoro sword, but when I saw the Wulfy wasn't going for it, I decided to bail on that as well.
Yeah, money was also not good. I think.
Yeah. My plan was kinda just getting the 300 on Hype Cave and getting somewhat lucky with red rupees on the way to find the rest, but
Oh, geez,
it's
relying on
it
rupee
ended up that.
drops. Hey, Senak,
Well,
you should
yeah.
add you should add prize packs to your spoiler log so that we can actually do this.
Like it could take a little more, a few detours along the way to get the rest of the rupees, but since Wolf wasn't going to get the sword, I decided to just don't and spend my money on a push instead.
Yeah, although you wound up not really needing it, plus having a absolutely fantastic Ganon fight. 3 and 2 cycles is still pretty good.
Yeah, I'm happy that went well because it wasn't going super well in practice today because I haven't done that Samara fight in a while, but managed to nail when it mattered.
That was certainly something on our minds as we saw the two of you approaching the fight, and interestingly enough, both of you nailed the fight, so I mean, that could have actually been a significant detail today. Obviously, congratulations for you being able to finish the seed with, confidence and actually getting that Kana Samaria fight down. Certainly a challenging thing to do if you haven't done it in a while, so I think I can speak for the audience. We're pretty impressed with this race today. So you do have your next race in this series coming up next Friday, 8 p.m. local to myself, Eastern time. Um, Given that you've finished this one in 50 minutes, is there anything you think you might plan on practicing and working on to try to cut down that time even further?
Just doing more, I guess. There's nothing really specific you can really say, because honestly, the real thing about spoiler logs is you end up with some really awkward and new decisions that you have to make when you don't need to check every single chest that you honestly don't really have an answer for most of the time. Like a concrete, this is the fastest way, which is definitely interesting.
Well, I suppose we'll see in a moment here, or at least shortly, because we're just kind of catching up to your stream's menu counts. How many items you picked up total? I mean, this is certainly a lower percentage race, and I gotta think that that temper must have been appealing. But like you mentioned before, you didn't have the rupees for it, and you ended up saving a lot of time not getting it. Um, Now, Zora, did you when you saw that the last sword was on Zora? Did you take any time to look at the spoiler log to look for 300 rupees, or were you just like,
Yes,
nope?
yes, definitely, yes. I think it could have been worth it if money was a bit more plentiful early, because then you could have use that sword on like basically almost all bosses where it really matters. But on the other hand, we did have like half magic which helped a lot already on trivializing some of those bosses. Because honestly, one of the reasons I wanted to get tempered was more for safety than actual speed. Because it's a insanely powerful safety item. Just being able to one-shot things and being able to kill bosses much faster and safer.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Running a seed without tempered is just ugh. And we got to your in-game time and collection rate, and wow, 53 collection rate is really low, even for a spoiler seed, I think.
Yeah,
And
with quite a few extra rupee chest open as well.
I gotta
and
say, it says something about the quality of your opponent that he was able to spend less minutes on his race than you did collections. 53 collections in your race to his sub 53 time. This is amazing to watch. Execution left, right, and center from both of you two. And it may not have been enough for Wulfy to take away a victory today, but big shout outs to him. Definitely going against one of the best in the tournament. I think it's fair to say about you, Kyong. Certainly looking forward to see how the rest of this series and the rest of your bracket goes.
Yeah, I'm excited for it as well. This tournament, the format of this tournament is very exciting to me.
And I'm hoping that excitement's going to continue to build. I'm looking forward to seeing more of these. Would have loved to have qualified myself, but there was a little bit of a time investment on the front end. Of course, we only had to do 3 qualifier seeds for those of you who are not familiar with the tournament or tuned into this late. Certainly a friendly format, to get into next time. And, for a bracket of 32, I would love to see this expand to 64 next time. And also, just to update the chat, Wulfy did decline an interview, so we'll pretty much close things out with Kyong here. We're going to see the end of that collection rate, and I think most of us are probably going to want to ship ourselves over to the Speed Gaming 6 race that's coming up shortly. I'd like to extend an opportunity to you, though, Kyong. Is there anything anybody you'd like to shout out or anything you'd like to say to your fans out there?
I guess just those things for the commentary and restream. And hopefully the next race will be just as exciting.
We'll certainly give them the benefit of the doubt, something we do not normally have here in Spoiler Log Tournament, which is exciting. I've done my piece, though. I'm Eudaimonistic. Espion, feel free to ask any other questions you have. I'm pretty much spent, though.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much done here. So I'd just like to also shout out our tracker Reg, who's been working hard in the background to make sure all of the items have appeared on the tracker. Tracking in a spoiler log race is actually really, really hard because runners are just running around constantly picking up all the items. So mad props to him for being able to track everything.
Certainly a condensed shift compared to normal. With that, though, that concludes Game 1 of this series. If you're looking to tune into the rest of the series, you got Game 2 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Channel to be determined, of course. I've been Eudaimonistic, joined today by Espion. Tune in to Speed Gaming 6 for that race about to start. And folks, we will see you in the next vlog.